Kanbjela po Rishab. Good morning, colleagues. My name is William Baloy. Welcome to GCIS Tshedimosetso House. As we have indicated that we will start at 11:10. So according to my watch, it is 10 past or maybe 1 minute after 10 past. So we are right on time. Today we are going to have, as per tradition, the post-cabinet statement and deliberations that maybe might be prompted by the questions, and the minister in the presidency will lead us. Joining the minister on the podium is the acting DG of GCIS, Ms. Nomonde Mnokwa. Thank you very much for coming. I make sure that when I get calls from colleagues who says, I'm just delayed at the parking, I do also make sure that we give you that latitude. Why? Because you are quite important. Remember, we are able to reach all the corners of the country, including the important stakeholders, through you. You are a platform that to us you are more than a partner, because you are the ones who reach out and inform all people of South Africa, including those joining the briefings from whatever corner of the globe. So you are quite important, colleagues. We'll make sure that the relationship we have with you is always nurtured. We have different interests sometimes, but at least we can sit and talk. Joining us today on sign language will be Thabo and Nobuhle, that will be assisting us with the sign language. As you know, that that is one of the official languages in our country, and we make sure that they are not discriminated on the basis of that their language or their mode of communication is what might not be the one on easier voice overs. So thank you very much, Thabo and Nobuhle. Colleagues, then allow me to then invite the minister in the presidency to come and lead us on this statement. Thank you very much, Minister.
Can you see, Bra Willie? I'm also helping your people to be ready fully. Good morning. This is the statement of the cabinet meeting that took place on Wednesday, the 29th of July, 2026, starting on the issues from the environment. We start with the Transnet rail performance for the first quarter. During the first quarter of 2026-27 financial year, Transnet Freight Rail recorded a 4.4% performance improvement year on year, and the TRF ended the quarter having completed 42 million tons compared to 40.2 million tons in the previous year. Notably, TRF achieved this performance despite the introduction of an additional 11-day scheduled maintenance shutdown on the iron ore line. Notwithstanding this, TRF moved a higher volume of tonnage, demonstrating a significant improvement in operational efficiency and throughput. On the automotive sector investment, Cabinet welcomed Toyota South Africa's Motors' 10.4 billion rands investment in its Prospecton plant in eThekwini to produce the 9th generation Hilux. The investment strengthens the automotive manufacturing sector, supports nearly 27,000 jobs across the supplier network, and sustains more than 4,300 direct assembly jobs, referring to the employees who work directly at Toyota's Prospecton manufacturing plant. Excuse me. This major capital injection, alongside the Cherry Group's recent acquisition and revitalization of the former Nissan manufacturing facility in Roslyn, Gauteng, Cherry Group has announced that it will manufacture the Cherry, Gieco, and Jeto brands at the newly acquired Roslyn facility. Initial production is scheduled to commence in mid-2027, with operational capacity ramping up the following year to achieve an annual output of 15,000 units. The Cherry Group's acquisition secures 692 manufacturing jobs and is projected to reach nearly 3,000 direct and indirect opportunities across logistics, engineering, supply chains, and support services. These long-term commitments also solidify South Africa's position as a robust manufacturing and regional export hub as we continue to rebuild our manufacturing capacity. In addition, the IMF has revised our growth for South Africa, and Cabinet has welcomed the International Monetary Fund's updated macroeconomic forecast, which revised South Africa's projected gross domestic product growth upward to 1.1%. Cabinet noted that this positive adjustment reflects a stabilizing domestic economy that continues to demonstrate resilience. While the upward revision to South Africa's economic growth forecast remains modest, it reflects growing confidence in the country's economic recovery efforts despite weaker global growth and geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. On the implementation of Phase 2 of the Digitized Trusted Employer Scheme, which is commonly known as the TESS, Cabinet welcomes the official launch of the Phase 2 of the Trusted Employer Scheme, TESS, to fast-track visa processing for verified employers without compromising national security or immigration controls. Qualified employers are required to demonstrate significant domestic investment, prioritizing the employment of South African citizens and permanent residents, invest in local skills development, and align with priority economic sectors. The dedicated online application portal for TESS Phase 2 is Home Affairs at Home, and this is part of government's broader digital transformation strategy. At some point, this digital portal will transition into the country's full electronic travel authorization ecosystem. Qualifying employers are invited to submit expressions of interest between 20 July 2026 and 4th September 2026. On building stronger regional economies in terms of SADC, South Africa is ready to host the SADC Summit. Cabinet is assured about South Africa's readiness to successfully host the 46th Ordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government of the Southern African Development Community, SADC from the 16th to the 17th of August 2026 at the Durban International Convention Center. As part of the SADC Summit build-up activities, South Africa is hosting the 2026 SADC Industrialization Week from the 27th of July to the 31st of July 2026 at the Durban International Convention Center in KwaZulu-Natal. The event brings together policymakers, business leaders, investors, academics, researchers, and development finance institutions from across the region and beyond to address and advance industrial development. The SADC Industrialization Week supports the SADC Industrialization Strategy and Roadmap 2015 to 2063, which is anchored on 3 pillars: industrialization, competitiveness, and regional integration. This year's focus includes the development of regional value chains in agro-processing, pharmaceuticals, consumer goods, and critical minerals beneficiation, as well as infrastructure development in energy, transport, logistics, water, and ICT. On reducing the transaction costs within SADC, Cabinet congratulated the South African Reserve Bank on the expansion of the SADC real-time gross settlement system with the inclusion of the Angolan kwanza as the second settlement currency after the South African rand. The SADC regional real-time gross settlement system aims to reduce transaction costs for cross-border trade within the region by facilitating the utilization of local currency, and it is operated by the South African Reserve Bank on behalf of participating SADC central banks. The inclusion of the Angolan kwanza as a settlement currency in the SADC RTGS system marks a significant milestone in advancing regional economic growth through the reduction of transaction costs. The South African-Namibia Binational Commission. Cabinet welcomed the successful conclusion of the 4th South African-Namibia Binational Commission that took place in Pretoria from the 17th of July 2026 and was co-chaired by Her Excellency President Dr. Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah, President of the Republic of Namibia, and His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa. This binational commission reaffirmed the strategic nature of South Africa-Namibia relations and advanced cooperation between the two countries in priority sectors. Of particular significance is the commitment of closer collaboration in the exploration and utilization of natural resources, which will support economic development and growth in both countries. The two presidents welcomed the signing of 7 bilateral agreements and instruments of cooperation between them. The $13 million emergency grant to strengthen efforts to contain Ebola virus in Africa. Cabinet welcomed the approval of the $13 million in emergency grants by the African Development Bank Group to strengthen efforts to contain the Ebola virus disease outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and South Sudan by reinforcing national emergency responses, curbing the spread of the virus, and reducing deaths and illnesses in the most affected and vulnerable communities. This funding follows calls by President Cyril Ramaphosa in his capacity as the African Union champion for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response, for greater African solidarity, urgent humanitarian assistance, and increased investment in African-led health innovation. There is no place like home. For the returning South Africans will always be welcome. Cabinet has noted allegations that white South Africans who chose to resettle in the United States of America under the falsehood of a white genocide in South Africa have been denied visas in that country. Cabinet has reiterated that South Africans, irrespective of their political views, will always have a home in this country without the fear of political persecution and suppression in accordance with the laws of the Republic. Cabinet acknowledged that South Africa is still confronted by many socio-economic challenges that affect all South Africans, irrespective of race and gender. These challenges must be addressed through a collective all of South Africa effort involving government, political parties, labor unions, business, civil society, and individual South Africans. The collective efforts must acknowledge the continued impact of the legacy of apartheid rule and the need for redress the injustices of the past. Cabinet calls on all South Africans to continue to reject those seeking to reverse the gains of our freedom through racial mobilization and to recommit to the goal of building a united, non-racial, and prosperous South Africa. On the 2026 winter customary initiation season, Cabinet expressed deep concern over the continued loss of life and other disturbing incidences recorded during the 2026 winter customary initiation season. Cabinet conveyed its heartfelt condolences to the families of the 47 initiates who lost their lives during the 2026 winter customary initiation season and wished those injured or still receiving medical treatment a speedy recovery. Cabinet further welcomed the swift response by law enforcement agencies to ensure that those who contravened customary initiation laws are held accountable. To date, approximately 161 criminal cases have been opened, resulting in the arrest of 41 people. In addition, 42 illegal initiation schools were closed and 181 initiates rescued and 93 hospitalized. On Cabinet decisions, extension of driving license validity period from 5 years to 10 years. Cabinet approved the extension of the validity period of driving licenses for codes A, A1, B, and EB from 5 years to 10 years. The 10-year renewal period will apply only to light motor vehicles. Heavy commercial and public transport vehicles will remain subject to existing 2 or 5-year renewal cycles, while professional drivers' permits will also remain on the 2-year renewal cycle. The change aligns with international best practice, enhances administrative efficiencies, reduces the frequency of renewals for motorists, and eases service demand pressures within the licensing system. The implementation of the extended validity period requires legislative amendments, so motorists must therefore continue to renew expired driving licenses cards until the new law takes effect. Revised electricity pricing policy. Cabinet approved the publication of the revised electricity pricing policy for public comments. The policy updates the 2008 electricity pricing policy to reflect developments in the electricity supply industry, including ongoing market reforms arising from the unbundling of Eskom and the implementation of the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act of 2024. The policy strengthens the regulatory framework governing electricity prices, tariffs, and charges, and provides tariff transparency through the unbundling of tariffs across generation, transmission, distribution, and retail activities, thus consolidating regulatory arrangements for electricity pricing across the various pricing interfaces between generators, traders, the National Transmission Company of South Africa, and the distributors. It also establishes the framework through which these interfaces will be enabled and regulated by NERSA. The policy supports the introduction of cost-reflective tariffs while protecting vulnerable users and strategic economic sectors. The draft sector market transformation position paper. Cabinet approved the publication of the draft electricity sector market transformation position paper for public comments. The position paper provides a framework to guide South Africa's transition from a predominantly state-controlled electricity system to a more competitive electricity market in line with the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act of 2024 and the Energy Action Plan. The proposed reforms seek to improve energy security and reliability by reducing reliance on a single electricity supplier and enabling greater participation in electricity generation and trading. The reforms are also aimed at attracting investment in electricity generation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure, supporting job creation and economic growth, and reducing electricity costs over the long term. The revised National Road Safety Strategy 2026-2030, Cabinet approved the revised National Road Safety Strategy 2026-2030. The strategy builds on the 2016-2030 National Road Safety Strategy, which was adopted to reduce road fatalities and aligned with the United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety and the National Development Plan. The review was necessitated by persistent challenges, including weak traffic law enforcement, corruption vulnerabilities, and fragmented implementation across all spheres of government. The revised National Road Safety Strategy advances a system-wide reform agenda anchored in intelligence-led traffic law enforcement, a zero-tolerance approach to corruption, digitally enabled systems, and strengthened governance and coordination. It supports global road safety targets and the 7th administration target to reduce road fatalities by 40% by 2026. Minister Chrissy said, I must indicate that we are moving towards 0% alcohol levels in our blood for drivers. The draft strategic framework for water and sanitation services, Cabinet approved the publication of the draft strategic framework, for water and sanitation services for public comments for a period of 60 days. The reviewed framework sets sector targets, responds to emerging challenges and developments, and aligns the sector with national priorities and global best practice. It emphasizes climate resilience, environmental integration, financial sustainability, urban-rural vulnerability gaps, digital transformation, and improved sector planning and delivery. The strategy is intended to strengthen sector governance, improve planning and delivery, and support the provision of sustainable, reliable, and equitable water and sanitation services for all South Africans. On the bills, Municipal Structures Amendment Bill 2026, Cabinet approved the submission of the Local Government Municipal Structures Amendment Bill to Parliament. The bill, commonly referred to the Coalition Bill, seeks to provide a clear legislative framework for the formation of coalition governments and to establish mechanisms to minimize coalition-related challenges in local government. Cabinet initially approved the publication of the bill for public comments. Following extensive consultations and further legislative refinement, the bill is now being submitted to Parliament for consideration. The proposed amendment seeks to promote stable and accountable coalition governance, reduce political instability, and support the uninterrupted delivery of services to communities. Electoral Laws Amendment Bill 2026, Cabinet approved the introduction of the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill 2026 in Parliament. The bill amends the Electoral Commission Act of 1996, the Electoral Act of 1998, and the Local Government Municipal Electoral Act of 2000 in preparation for the 2026 local government elections. The amendments are intended to ensure alignment and strengthen the electoral legislative framework, enhance the administration and management of elections, and support the conduct of free, fair, and credible elections. Conspiracy, Instigation, and Incitement to Commit Offence Bill 2026, Cabinet approved the introduction of the Conspiracy, Instigation, and Incitement to Commit Offence Bill 2026 into Parliament. The bill repeals the outdated Rioters Assemblies Act of 1956 and reforms the legal framework for penalizing persons who conspire, instigate, or incite the commission of criminal offences. It replaces unconstitutional provisions and aligns the law with the current constitutional order while strengthening the state's ability to address conduct that encourages or facilitates the commission of criminal offences. The General Mining Laws Amendment Bill 2026, Cabinet approved the publication of the General Mining Laws Amendment Bill 2026 for public comments. The bill seeks to strengthen the legislative framework to combat illicit mining and related activities that continue to pose risks to public safety, economic development, and sustainable management of the country's mineral resources. It proposes amendments to the Criminal Procedure Act of 1997, the Diamonds Act of 1986, the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act of 2002, and the Precious Metals Act of 2005. The amendments include measures to criminalize illicit mining and related offenses, commonly known as zamazamas. The Regulation of Trusts Bill of 2026, Cabinet approved the publication of the Regulation of Trust Bill of 2026 for public comment. The bill seeks to modernize the legal framework for trust by replacing the outdated Trust Property Control Act. It aims to strengthen accountability and compliance, enhance the oversight role of the Master of the High Court, and provide greater protection for beneficiaries. The Legal Practice Amendment Bill of 2026, Cabinet approved the publication of the Legal Practice Amendment Bill of 2026 for public comments. The bill seeks to streamline the administrative structures of the legal sector while advancing transformation. It also introduces structural changes to the Legal Practitioners Fidelity Fund to strengthen financial sustainability, enhance public protection. The bill further proposes amendments to various provisions of the Legal Practice Act to support the development and enhancement of skills of legal practitioners, improve access to the legal profession, promote access to justice, and address practical challenges that have arisen in the implementation of the Legal Practice Act. The General Financial Laws Amendment Bill 2026, Cabinet approved the introduction of the submission of the General Financial Laws Amendment Bill 2026 to Parliament. The bill proposes amendments to the Financial Sector Regulation Act of 2017 and the Public Procurement Act of 2024. The bill proposes the insertion of new chapter in the Financial Sector Regulation Act to support domestic reforms aimed at strengthening the governance and regulation of official financial benchmarks. It also proposes amendments to Section 68 of the Public Procurement Act to support ongoing reforms aimed at strengthening South Africa's financial and procurement regulatory frameworks, enhancing oversight, and promoting greater regulatory capacity. Updates to Cabinet. First is the government's intervention to ensure a reliable supply of quality water to all South Africans. Cabinet welcomed the release of the National Water Action Plan, which sets out strategic interventions to ensure reliable supply of quality water to all South Africans while addressing the root causes of water supply challenges in the country. The plan was developed by the National Water Crisis Committee, which is chaired by President Cyril Ramaphosa, in consultation with the three spheres of government, including the South African Local Government Association. Cabinet also commended the launch of the National Water Access Acceleration Program, which was launched on International Nelson Mandela Day on the 18th of July 2026, along with the rollout of the 67 decentralized water supply schemes comprising boreholes and package plants to expand access to safe drinking water in unserved rural communities in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Eastern Cape. The 67 groundwater interventions are expected to benefit an estimated 125,986 people across the three provinces, with further implementation phases planned for October 2026 and April 2027. These projects represent the first phase of the Department of Water and Sanitation's National Water Access Acceleration Program, which is being implemented through the water boards under the Water Services Act. More than 200 million has been allocated to phase one of the program, which combines borehole drilling, groundwater development, spring protection, rainwater harvesting, and rehabilitation of existing water infrastructure to expand access to safe drinking water. As part of a broader public infrastructure investment program, government earlier this year allocated 156 billion rands to water and sanitation infrastructure over the next 3 years. The investment will support the expansion and maintenance of water infrastructure, improve the reliability of supply, and address water and sanitation challenges facing affected communities. Progress update on the implementation of the comprehensive approach for managing migration in South Africa. Cabinet received an update on the implementation of the comprehensive approach for ensuring regular migration in South Africa as per the 5-point plan and as announced by the President. And the progress is as follows. As at 23 July 2026, 205 incidents related to violation of immigration and related legislation were reported and registered as criminal cases. This is up from 103 reported in the first week of July 2026. A total of 354 people were arrested, with the Free State Province registering the highest number of 174 arrests. Of these, 107 cases are already in the court roll. From 1st of April 2026 to end June 2026, courts have finalized 28,736 immigration-related cases, mainly for deportations. Between 14 June to 24 July 2026, 68,327 undocumented foreign nationals were repatriated through coordinated law enforcement operations, and the coordination were with their home countries through their embassies. Of the 68,327, 81% were Malawians, 16% Zimbabweans, and 3% Mozambicans. The rollout of the electronic travel authorization, which the ETA, and the upgraded enhanced movement control systems are underway at OR Tambo International Airport, Lanseria Airport, King Shaka Airport, International Airport, and Cape Town International Airport. The Musina Temporary Repatriation Center will be downscaled from 20,000 holding capacity to 1,500 holding capacity. The 26th Commission of Employment Equity Annual Report. Cabinet received and noted the 2025-26 Commission for Employment Equity Annual Report. The report tracks workplace transformation and compliance with the Employment Equity Act. The 26th Commission of Employment Equity Annual Report highlights persistent hierarchical inequalities in the workforce, with racial and gender disparities continuing at senior levels in the private sector. White and Indian population groups remain overrepresented at the top management level, representing 57.1% for whites and 12.2% for Indians. At senior management level, white employees constitute 41.4% and Indian employees 12.5%. African and colored employees remain concentrated in lower and unskilled occupational levels, while the representation of employees with disabilities remains very low at 1.3% of the total workforce. The report also notes an increase in the representation of African employees at professionally qualified middle management, skilled technical, and junior management levels at 52%, and also noted the 3.1% representation of foreign nationals at all levels, and the report is concerned with such representation at semi-skilled and unskilled level jobs, which might be in contravention of the Employment Services Act, which prescribes that employers must satisfy themselves that there are no other persons in the Republic with suitable skills to fill a vacancy before recruiting a foreign national. Government will continue to use the findings to monitor transformation, promote equitable representation, and guide corrective measures across the labor market. Impact of spectrum licensing on digital infrastructure and bridging the digital divide. Cabinet noted the report on the impact of radio frequency spectrum licensing on digital infrastructure and connectivity in South Africa. The licensing of high-demand spectrum has advanced broadband access, improved network performance, and supported investment in digital infrastructure. However, Cabinet expressed concern that the telecommunications operators have not met their social obligations linked to the spectrum licensing allocation. Government has set a target to connect 21,878 public institutions by 2029, comprising of 16,139 schools, 4,232 health facilities, 570 libraries, and 937 traditional authorities. As of April 2026, telecommunication operators had only connected 5,295 public institutions of their social obligations. A very huge disappointment from a minister who drove the licensing of the spectrum. Appointments. All appointments are subject to verification of qualifications and relevant security clearances. Cabinet concurred to the appointment of Mr. Nkosikona Sidney Mbata as Chief Executive Officer of the Small Enterprise Development Financing Agency. Ms. Vangile Petronella Nene as Deputy Director General Professional Services in the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. Ms. Beryl Ferguson as Chairperson of the South African National Parks Board. Cabinet appointed the non-executive members of the Board of Directors of the Public Investment Corporation Limited. Mr. Seiso Joel Muhai, the Deputy Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, as the Chairperson. Ms. Patience N. Z. Eto, Ms. Lebogang R. Muhobudi Advocate Khatlelang Omar Rastaba, Ms. Vivian McMenamin, excuse me, Ms. Jabulile Swazi Chabalala, Mr. Itani Mafune, and Ms. Muiponi Ramuiponi, who is the National Treasury representative. This is to address the governance challenges at the PIC, and the Minister of Finance will then bring a report on the continued implementation of the Mumpati Commission recommendations, which have made propose certain reforms which will be considered by Cabinet. And the previous board had started to work on those reforms and will continue to make sure that those reforms are finalized. Appointment of the Council for Mineral Technology Board, Dr. Tibedi Ramuncha, Chairperson, which is a reappointment, Ms. Azwindini Tomani, reappointment, Dr. Takarani Mazibandira, reappointment, Mr. Luvuyo Keise, Dr. Farna Bodham, Dr. Palisa Ramashala, Ms. Lerato Hildade Khole, Dr. Sandy Lenkanana, Ms. Nondumiso Ngonyama, and Dr. Avela Majavu as a reappointment. Mr. Kahiso Meno will be a Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources representative. On events and conferences, upcoming events, the Africa Aerospace and Defense Exhibition and Air Show 2026, Cabinet approved the hosting of the 13th Africa Aerospace and Defense Exhibition and Air Show 2026 under the theme Africa's Gateway to Defense and Aerospace Collaboration, which will be held at the Air Force Base Waterkloof in Tshwane from the 16th to the 20th of September 2026. The exhibition is expected to attract more than 300 exhibitors from around the world, official delegations from more than 50 countries, and more than 30,000 trade visitors. The event will also showcase advancements in the aerospace and defense sectors while promoting international cooperation, trade, and investment. The Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium South Africa 2026, commonly known as SEDISA. Cabinet noted that South Africa will host the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium South Africa from 23 to 25 August 2026. The event is expected to attract approximately 700 delegates. The symposium will bring together investors, financial institutions, policymakers, thought leaders, and other strategic partners to advance South Africa's infrastructure investment agenda and showcase progress in implementing Cabinet-approved National Infrastructure Plan 2015. The SEDISA 2026 will announce the top 8 infrastructure priority projects selected under Bid Window 2 for project preparation and technical support, and release the 3rd edition of the construction book, provide an update on the strategic integrated projects, SIPs, showcase key policy and regulatory developments, and highlight strategic infrastructure partnerships aimed at positioning South Africa as a leading infrastructure development and financing hub on the African continent. The 70th anniversary of the 1956 Women's March. This is very iconic. On 9th August 2026, South Africa will mark the historic 70th anniversary of the 1956 Women's March, during which more than 20,000 women marched to the Union buildings to protest the extension of past laws and Urban Areas Act to women. The milestone commemoration will be observed under the national theme, Empowered Women, Empower the Nation. Cabinet reiterated that the brave actions of the 1956 generation directly advances structural inclusion of women across parliament, into government, private sector, and civil society, firmly establishing equal citizenship and constitutional rights in a democratic South Africa. While saluting the resilience of the nation's women, Cabinet reaffirmed government's commitment, unwavering commitment, I must say, to protecting, promoting, and advancing the rights of women, intensifying work on eradicating gender-based violence and femicide, dismantling economic exclusion, ensuring equal access to productive resources. Watinta bafas. How? There's no watinta mbokot. Watinta bafas. Thank you. Hosted conferences the 26th Africa Rail Conference exhibition. South Africa hosted the 26th Africa Rail Conference exhibition on the 7th and 8th of July 2026 in Johannesburg. The conference noted the progress made in restoring the country's passenger rail services, with annual commuter journeys exceeding 100 million by the end of March 2026, and 35 of the country's 40 priority rail corridors having returned to service. Government remains committed to restoring safe, reliable, and affordable commuter rail services, with a target of reaching 600 million passenger journeys annually by 2030. Announcements. Registration of qualifying customary marriages. Cabinet reminds all members of the public that 31 August 2026 is the deadline to register qualifying customary marriages under the special registration period, which was declared by the Minister of Home Affairs. The special registration period commenced from the 1st of September 2024 and it will conclude on the 31st August 2026, and was introduced to enable parties to customary marriages that were not registered within the prescribed period. That is the initial period that was done in the 5th administration, to regularize their marital status. This includes customary marriages concluded before the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act that came into effect in November 2000, as well as the marriages concluded thereafter that were not registered within the prescribed time frame. Cabinet calls on all members of the public who require further information on the registration process or supporting documents to visit their nearest Home Affairs offices. Final voter registration weekend. Cabinet calls on all eligible voters to make use of the final National Voter Registration Weekend scheduled from the 1st and the 2nd of August 2026 to register to vote ahead of the 2026 local government election. Eligible voters are encouraged to seize this final opportunity to register or update their registration details. Voting stations nationwide will be open from 8 o'clock to 1700 hours, which is 5 p.m. Eligible voters may also register or update their details at any time through the official IEC online voter registration portal, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The portal is register2vote.elections.org.za. Cabinet calls on all South Africans, especially young and first-time voters, to exercise their democratic right to vote. Our democracy is based on the will of the people, and your vote is central to the success of well-functioning democracy. Another announcement, so that when you go to questions, you do not ask me questions. Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development will hold a briefing this afternoon on the matters affecting IDEC. Furthermore, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development will hold a briefing tomorrow on to expand on the bills that were just approved by Cabinet. Today's briefing, and Brawili will confirm, is scheduled at 1700 hours, 5 p.m. So you know I'm not taking questions on the IDEC matters. Messages, condolences. Cabinet expressed condolences to the family and friends of Bafana Bafana and Mamelodi Sundowns midfielder, our star Jaden Adrams, commonly known as Grootman, who brought joy to the nation with his outstanding performances, including at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Former South African rugby under-18 prop Luqobo Magwedini Bimbo, an outstanding young sportsman who brought joy to many with his hard work and dedication in the field of play of rugby, and he is leading the Guijos in the high school level and also in the junior levels. Veteran actor Siputla Sibohodi, who leaves behind a remarkable legacy as one of South Africa's most talented and respected actors, with a career spanning several decades across television and theatre. Liberation struggle stalwart Shatonventhi Shanti Naidu Twedi, whose lifelong sacrifice and commitment helped shape South Africa's journey to freedom. As an anti-apartheid activist, she faced various periods of detention, including solitary confinement under the Terrorism Act, as well as banishment orders. She also lived in exile in the United Kingdom from 1972 to 1991. To the family and friends of Bettina Weinhardt, a South African lawyer turned author and activist, renowned for her Afrikaans novels and her advocacy for women's rights. Congratulations. Cabinet extended its congratulations and well wishes to Team South Africa for flying the flag high and making the country proud at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. South Africa has so far won 11 medals, 3 gold, 3 silver, and 5 bronze. And the medals are as follows. Charlie Clough, who became the most decorated male athlete in Commonwealth Games history after helping South Africa secure bronze in the men's 4x100 freestyle relay. Swimming. Peter Kotze for winning gold in the men's 200 backstroke and in the 50-meter backstroke in a record time of 24.18 seconds. Erin Gallagher for winning silver in the women's 50-meter butterfly and bronze in the women's 100-meter butterfly. Amy Kenny for winning silver in the women's 100-meter breaststroke. Ruud van Renen for winning the bronze medal in the 50-meter backstroke. Olivia Nel for winning bronze medal in women's 100-meter backstroke. Amy Kenny, Rebecca Mader, Erin Gallagher, and Olivia Nel for winning the bronze medal in the women's 4x100 freestyle relay. Peter Kotze, Guy Brooks, Ruud van Renen, Charlie Clough for winning the bronze medal in the men's 4x100 freestyle relay. Nathan Hendrick for winning gold in the men's S13 100-meter freestyle. Michael Holy for winning silver in the men's 50-meter breaststroke. We say, no DNA, just RSA. The Springboks for winning all 3 of their nations championship matches and topping the log with maximum points. The Junior Springboks for winning World Rugby Under-20 Championships in Tilburg, Georgia. Dickers Du Plessis for defeating Kamaru Usman in the main event on the Ultimate Fighting Championship, Oklahoma City fight card. Bayanda Walaza for his outstanding performance at the TIPSO PTS meeting in Slovakia, winning the men's 100 meters with a personal best of 9.89 seconds and becoming the 4th South African to run under the 990 seconds. He's solidly on the sub-10. South Africa national women's soccer team Banyana Banyana as they compete in the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, and we wish them well in their second game against Ivory Coast on Friday, 31st July 2026. We know what happened in the first game. We say chin up, and we know our girls will do it. The University of Witwatersrand for being ranked the top university in Africa, according to the 2026 Center for World University Rankings. This placement also puts Wits in the top 1% of higher education institutions globally, ranking 200th out of more than 21,000 institutions assessed worldwide. It's not a small feat. The University of Cape Town for being ranked 102 globally in the 2026 Times Higher Education Sustainability Impact Rankings and for achieving 9 top 100 positions across the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. 12-year-old Lubanzi Dube on becoming the first black South African to win the prestigious 2026 World Startup Forum Championship in Switzerland. Competing against 400 innovators from around the world, Lubanzi won with his groundbreaking innovation, Soul Ease, which is designed to address food health challenges. His achievement has not only placed South Africa in the global spotlight, but has also inspired young Africans to pursue science, technology, and entrepreneurship. We need to say it. No DNA, just RSA. Team South Africa for securing the 4th place in the World Spelling Bee Championship in Shanghai, China, with grade 7 learner Mbulelo Tolom achieving an impressive 6th place overall while competing against learners from higher grades. A mighty congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the feedback. Very happy that it's raining medals on the pool. confirming also South African sporting pro. Colleagues, let me start by inviting questions in the House, then we'll go for questions online. The drill is as follows. You'll raise your hand once you are noted and recognized. You press the red button just where you seated, then you speak on that one. Let's go for them now. Let me note your hand, the second hand, and the third, the fourth. In that order now, I recognize the hand. I'll start with you at the back. Yes, yes. You press the knob. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. John Bashi, Financial Mail. Can you hear me? Okay, so my question is for the Minister.
And welcome, John.
Oh, thank you very much. So this is a question, it's perhaps a bit esoteric. It's about the fourth session of the South African-Namibia Binational Commission, which was held here in Pretoria earlier this month. The joint communique made reference to 7 bilateral agreements, among which is the bilateral air services agreement. My question is, what are the implications of this agreement, and how might it affect the competitiveness of SAA, and what is anticipated to be the relaunch of a Namibia state-owned flag carrier later this year? Just any information at all would be greatly appreciated. I know that that's, like I said, perhaps esoteric. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the second hand was, yeah, yes.
Hi, my name is Mobi Leguza from Reuters. Minister, so just clarity on the PIC non-execs. So was the board dissolved or the remaining members also resigned? And so does this mean that all the non-executive members are new?
Thank you, Nkobile.
Okay. Good morning, good day, Rawin and the Minister. My name is Ntebo, I'm with the SABC. My name is Ntebo, I'm with the SABC. On the SADC summit, one would assume that obviously there is an expectation in anything that government will want to embark. If you're hosting the SADC summit, is there anything that you want to, any message that you want to portray to, or to send to your peers in the region, especially flowing from what had happened in the past in terms of the undocumented foreign nationals? Is there anything that you want to maybe your peers to look into, especially in terms of helping South Africa to sort of alleviate this problem? And secondly, on the question of the Afrikaners that left South Africa at some point and decided to settle in the US. Minister, you said that some of them have been denied visas in that country. What are the reasons of them being denied this thing? Have they explained, have the government, the US government explained to you or to our government in terms of what exactly happened that they were denied this thing? And maybe lastly, also if you asked me to ask this question, that the Ministerial Committee on Migration at some point was supposed to present a plan before Cabinet, and just to strengthen our borders and borderlines. And the Minister made a presentation. Did the Minister of Defense made a presentation? And if yes, if possibly you can share that with us. From now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prawili. I want to pick up on my colleague on my questions relate to my questions. Sorry, Minister, didn't introduce myself. My name is Karama Fukwan, Newsroom Africa. The two questions I had, I think you've already answered them on the numbers, the migration numbers, and the Lucina side. But what does the Cabinet, or if discussed at all, say about the continued protest against the illegal immigrants in the country, despite efforts being made by your government in recent months, the months that you've mentioned? And also, did Cabinet get a report, and if so, discussed in Cabinet yesterday, about Minister Lamola's visit to Nigeria. I mean, part of it was to mend relations with the country as one of those countries, together with Ghana, which allegedly was spreading misinformation and disinformation about some of South Africa's migration policy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and for the questions. Let me invite the Minister in the Presidency, who's also the Cabinet spokesperson, to address some of the questions that you have raised.
May I have the repeat of the last question?
Regarding the Minister Lamola's visit to Nigeria. Is that the question?
The last question.
Yes. The question was if Cabinet received a report from Minister Lamola's visit in Nigeria, and if discussed what were some of the deliberations, or what is Cabinet stance as to some of the issues that was raised by, I think it was the Presidency spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, 2 weeks ago, about Nigeria and Ghana being at the forefront of misrepresenting some of South Africa's immigration or migration policy.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe let me start with the last question. My apologies. I didn't hear it, so that's why I said the last question. If I had repeated, it wouldn't have meant I've heard it. My apologies. Mr. Lamola is still traveling, so he's not yet back, so he has not yet submitted a report. So there was no that discussion. This first question was on the bilateral agreement, that more especially the airspace agreement, that with the relaunch of Air Namibia, won't it threaten the survival of the South African Airways? That's the question. So we depart from a position that South Africa cannot develop alone. That is the position of South Africa. That's why we continue to make efforts to make sure that there's a development of the entirety of the region, SADC, and also the continent of Africa. That's our commitment. That's our foreign policy approach specific to Africa. That's why we said a better Africa for a better world. And if we use example in other jurisdictions, the existence of Emirates have not threatened the existence of Qatar Airlines. So the existence of Air Namibia will not threaten the existence of SAA. They may even want to go into some code share arrangement. If you recall, I think 2 weeks ago, when OR Tambo was full and there was not full, when there was no visibility, we had to divert our aircrafts to land in Botswana. And imagine if Botswana did not have, because that fog was affecting the whole of South Africa. Imagine if Botswana did not have the capability, the runway capability for us to land there. It was going to be a problem. So the development of Namibia is no threat to the development of South Africa, the development of Botswana, Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania, Malawi, who else did I left? Mauritius, Seychelles, the Comoros. The SADC countries' development are in the best interest of South Africa. If you recall, even when we're dealing with the migration challenges, we said there are pull factors that bring people to South Africa. We're not dealing with political refugees, we're dealing with economic migrants. And if the region of SADC and the continent of Africa was fully developed, and we developed at par, it will mean there will not be economic migrants. We will then have the movement of scarce skills, special skills, so that we can then complement the development of each country. So the agreements are and our relations, bilateral relations, are meant to foster economic development, because when Africa develops, South Africa develops further. On the board of PIC, the entirety of the board of PIC resigned, and these are the new board members appointed. on the SABC questions. Let me start on the reasons for the US denying visas. I'm sure it's in line with their laws. We have no reason to query the US for denying visas to people who are not Americans. We have the responsibility when those people affected are South Africans to make sure that they come back home, and that's our message, that they are welcome home. On the undocumented hosting of SADC summit and undocumented nationals, SADC has a protocol on the movement of people which emphasizes regular migration. Regular migration means legal migration, not illegal migration. And we must indicate that Malawi signed the protocol on the 16th of July on the sidelines of the meeting of the ministerial meeting on security, safety, and yeah, it's a long name. So the side is we have that protocol. A number of countries have signed, which will soon come into effect. What that protocol prescribes is that we must then have the immigration systems that are integrated. We must be able to record. If you remember, when we're doing the repatriations, majority of the people who were being repatriated, they did not have papers, let alone an expired paper. They did not have any paper. And I don't want to mention countries, but they do not have papers. So the coming into effect of the SADC protocol on migration and movement of people, in particular the migration component, will then be helpful to managing the migration challenges in the country and within the region. On the plan for strengthening the borderline, it's not Minister Mtsaga's plan, it is the plan of the IMC, and work has commenced on that plan for managing the borderline. We needed to dot the I's and cross our T's, so it will go to Cabinet in the next meeting, but it has not stopped the work that have to be done within the scope that we can move with. That the major issue currently is the budget issues, which must be finalized with National Treasury and the implications thereof, and that's what has delayed the processing to Cabinet. But other things that where we have the funding, we are moving to make sure that it's implemented. I think I've covered all the questions. Thank you.
Colleagues, thank you very much for the questions. Let me then take questions that we have online. Vanessa.
Angelo Magolejo from UFM. In light of Ghana's current hostility towards South Africa over immigration, will the South African government be withdrawing support for and participation to the Continental Campaign to demand reparations for colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade? If not, how do you anticipate SA contributing to that campaign despite tensions towards the country championing it? Shannon Lekodi Merrick from SABC Africa. Now that much circus has failed to collapse the South African economy, and our partnerships in SADC and Africa and the African Union, what's the way forward for Cabinet to ensure we don't have to endure this much chaos as a country again and spend almost 1 billion on security of state resources, infrastructure, etc.? Siphelele Huza from Business Report. Are there any attempts by the government to introduce a singular national law that would preserve certain jobs and informal businesses exclusively for South Africans, as per demands of anti-illegal immigration protesters, and as seen in other countries such as Zimbabwe and Ghana? If not, why? Was Minister Lamola requested to explain your statement about Nigerian drug dens during his recent visit as a special envoy to Abuja? If so, how did he explain this? Sunay Payne from News 24. These are questions related to the PIC.
what now happens to the suspended CEO Patrick Dlamini? What measures or guarantees has the cabinet put in place to prevent a repeat of the governance issues we've seen at the PIC in recent months? Simon Majadibodu from IOL. What informed the appointment of Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Siso Mohai, to lead the PIC? How does Cabinet respond to claims that the government does not have enough resources to deal with illegal immigration, including a shortage of spaces to hold detainees, immigration officers, court capacity, and transport for deportations? That's all we have for now.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Minister, I suspect these were the very last questions that we have, so you can have the time and then maybe close.
Thank you. There was a question I think I omitted in the previous round, but it's one of the questions that's also asked in the online questions. So our support for the continental campaign to demand reparations for colonialism and transatlantic slave trade, it's a principled support. It's principle based on the history of this country as well, but also on an acknowledgement that globally other people got compensated for the harm they suffered. The Jews were compensated for the Holocaust, but Africans were not compensated for the slave trade and the after effects of colonialism. It's not only the people of Ghana or West Africa, it's also the people of Namibia, but also our own people in South Africa. So our campaign is not based on misinformation that is being driven. It's not based on political maneuvering. It's not based on sponsored rhetorics. Our support for the campaign is based on the fact that Africans deserve justice. Africans deserve not only an acknowledgement of the wrongs that were visited on them, but Africans deserve to be compensated. It is for that reason that in our own country, we are redressing the injustices of the past, the injustices of the apartheid rule and colonialism. So our support is principled. On how we're going to ensure, or what is the way forward to ensure we don't have to endure the march-on-march chaos and spend a lot of money on security, securing the state resources and infrastructure, because I like the phrasing, now that the march-on-march SEC has failed to collapse the South African economy and also to collapse our partnerships with SADC and the African Union, how are we going to ensure that? So we've been very consistent and we've been very clear. And I've said this in the past, that when government does its work, people don't want to stand up and notice and even acknowledge. We have been dealing as government with the migration issue. We have been dealing consistently to address migration issues. We're taken to court a number of times. Some court cases we lost, some we won, including the latest Concord decisions that allowed us to deal with the abuse of the asylum seeker status and processes, which we have won because we had to go to the highest court. we have revised the white paper on immigration to tighten the immigration laws, to stop the abuse of marriages, where people are married when they do not know who they are married to because of the corruption, and for people to gain South African citizenship, illegally so. We've been at work to make sure that we put that system in place. We put in place the BMA, the Border Management Authority, as government, which has started to reverse the high numbers of irregular or illegal entry into the country. We gave you statistics in the previous cabinet statement of what were the numbers that they blocked. And not only this year, since they came into place, the BMA, what are the numbers that they've blocked of illegal immigration attempts. And we had called, if you recall also, 2025 and 2024 to 2025, when we did the registration of spaza shops, we were saying you cannot allow people to operate spaza shops whose identity you do not know. But it was South Africans, when the registration process were done, who chose to lease out their own spaza shop and informal business licenses to undocumented foreign nationals. So the incidences of the past few weeks, what it has also helped is to bring into the fore the responsibility of South Africans not to aid and enable people who are in the country illegally. But on our own, it has also strengthened the work. That's why the IMC on immigration is continuing to work to make sure that we do our best to make sure that the system is strong enough and tight enough not to be penetrated, but to make sure that also communities take the responsibility that they have, including traditional leaders. And we need to extend our appreciation to the Provincial House of Traditional Leaders of Limpopo, who are coordinating the responsibility of making sure that people in their areas of jurisdiction are known and are accounted for, and call on Home Affairs to work with them, to support them. Through the GCIS, we are undertaking an outreach program in support of the IMC to have the conversation around immigration, because it has also raised another issue. I'm sure you have seen when businesses are complaining that we no longer have, they don't have pickers for their fruits. There are jobs that South Africans do not want to do. We're going to bring those issues to the fore and say, let's have conversations. Are South Africans willing to be farm workers and to pick fruit? So those are the conversations we must have as a nation, the dialogue we must have, and agree how do we move forward. But when we move forward in line with regular migration. There's no employer, no matter the circumstances, who's allowed to employ undocumented foreign nationals. They must be documented. And there's a question of whether there are attempts by government to introduce a singular national law that will preserve certain jobs and informal businesses exclusively for South Africans. And I'm sure this question arises from the fact that in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, I don't know, Namibia, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Ghana, in Nigeria, they've got laws exclusively that reserves informal businesses. For instance, in Zimbabwe, you cannot own a hair salon when you're not a Zimbabwean. In Ghana, you cannot own a hair salon when you're not a Ghanaian. We can give you a list, and I know that because I was once a Minister of Small Business Development, and that was in 2019 when we attempted to introduce that law. But we were hamstrung by the fact that our immigration laws were not very clear. We have moved the Business Act to the Small Business Department, and we then required the licensing of small, informal businesses and micro businesses to make sure that and the conditions for licensing to comply with the current immigration law that says for you to operate a small, an informal business in South Africa, or to operate a business in South Africa when you're a foreign national, you must invest a minimum of 5 million rands. And we'll all agree that hair salon, spaza shop, motor mechanic, except when you are a top, does not require 5 million rands investment. So we put the regulations in that space then. Currently, the minister is putting an amendment law that Minister Ntshavheni is putting an amendment law that makes the reservations. But we need the amendment bill in line with the revised immigration white paper to come into effect to provide an enabling legislation from the immigration law, because Section 22 of our Constitution is very clear. The right to trade is a right for South Africans. But we also make an acknowledgement that refugees who are in this country and asylum seekers who are in these countries, because we don't provide refugee camps, because we know what refugee camps create. We have been, and we must be clear, South Africans who have lived in the continent during our struggle for freedom, they lived in refugee camps. They needed permission to move from a refugee camp to town. We must be very clear. That's why when you go to Angola, when you go to Tanzania, when you go to Zambia, there are camps where the ANC people were resident. They were in refugee camps. We have taken a posture that we don't want to create refugee camps. So we integrate refugees in our communities. Therefore, because we don't have refugee camps where we can provide for them, then they are also allowed to work and do business in South Africa in line with the conditions that South Africans are. This is in line with the UN convention that we have signed, we have subscribed to. But wonke, there must be a 5 million rand investment. Minister Ntshavheni is working on that legislation. As I've indicated, whether Minister Lamula have explained my statement about drug dens, Minister Lamula is not yet back. We'll get the feedback, but I thought that matter was addressed sufficiently by Minister Kubai. On my understanding is that the CEO of the PIC, Mr. Patrick Dlamini, has taken the matter of his suspension to court. Any other decision must be left to the board of the PIC, which is just announced, which is newly appointed. I didn't see the... How do we, maybe let me deal with the PIC related matter. What informed the appointment of Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation to lead the PIC? In terms of the PIC Act, the chairperson of the PIC can be a Deputy Minister of Finance, or if it's a Deputy Minister of Finance, they must be appointed by the Minister of Finance, but in consultation with Cabinet, any other deputy minister from the economic cluster can be appointed. Deputy Minister Seiso Muhai is a deputy minister within the economic cluster. And so therefore it's in line with the provision of the PIC Act. Then what happens to the claims? How does Cabinet respond to claims that the government does not have enough resources to deal with illegal immigration, including shortage of places to hold detainees, immigration officers, court capacity, and transport for deportations? I don't think we were in the same Cabinet briefing. If we were in the same, this question would not have arisen. I've indicated in the Cabinet statement that we have increased the capacity for courts, including the increase in the capacity in the court in Lindela, the courts establishment of new courts in OR Tambo International, and increasing the capacity in the court in Durban, eThekwini. And we remember, in terms of policy of the which was approved, we are moving the part of the white paper, revision of the white paper on immigration. We are moving the refugee, the reception centers, not refugee, the reception centers to the border, so that we then build that capacity up there. And we have demonstrated that we have capacity. We can build capacity at the shortest period of time. The IMC, when confronted with the need to shelter the people who wanted to be repatriated in line with the requests of their home governments and their embassies. We built a temporary repatriation center in Musina within 4 days, and it was operational. And none of you have spoken that there was no outbreak of any disease. There was no cholera update. There was nothing that when we have hosted 20,000 people let go, that ordinarily there would have been a situation. You have not had a situation where people have gone hungry there. So we've got the capacity to respond when we have to respond. And the transportation of deportees, we have not had a situation where deportees, the court has approved the deportation and we said that we can't deport them because there's no transport. We have always managed to deport those who had to be deported. And the delays of the deportations, if we give context, it was because the governments, again, I'm not going to mention names because otherwise I'll make the job of Minister Lamula very difficult, but if they go on, they do not want to come and identify their people at the Lindela because we need confirmation, more so when you are dealing with people who do not have any documentation to indicate that you are a South African or you are whatever. And that's why on our part, and we are, I think, second to Egypt in terms of making sure that South Africans are documented. And the Home Affairs Department has been charged to make sure that we need to progress those who are still undocumented, who are South Africans, to make sure that all are documented. There are statistics about learners who do not have birth certificates, and Home Affairs working with DBE, we're going to do a huge program to make sure that those number of young learners, young people who do not have birth certificates are duly registered and in line with the late registration of birth, to make sure that South Africans have documentation. So in an instance where we don't have any documentation, we need that, and the person says, I am Namibian, and I'm using Namibia as an example because there are no issues of illegal immigration between South Africa and Namibia and even Angola. You come and say, I'm an Angolan. How do we know that you're an Angolan when you do not have paper? Or when you're a Namibian when you do not have paper? So we need the High Commission or the Embassy of Angola and Namibia to come and confirm. And I'm just using the two countries for illustration purposes. Don't say we are there. So and that's how, and the delays have been mainly from the Lindela Center deportation and the other deportation centers. There's been the need for these countries to confirm their people. There are countries that cooperate like Mozambique. When you say we've got your number of people, they come and to confirm their people quickly so that we facilitate the deportations when the deportations are required. But there are countries who do not come through. They only responded now with the pressures of the March on March and all of them. But we are also signing the protocol for the transfer and exchange of prisoners, the SADC protocol for the transfer and exchange of prisoners. We've got more than 7,000 prisoners in our prisons who are not South Africans, and we have a commitment to make sure the holding capacity of our prisons is at acceptable level. But you can't release people who are not South Africans even when you do parole, so they need to go back to their country. So we are finalizing those agreements to make sure we can then take people back to their homes who are offenders so that they can serve their sentences at home. I'd like to indicate, I'm told the medals have increased. The medal tally at the Commonwealth Games have increased. I must indicate, sure, these young South Africans are real South Africans, showing them flames. In gold, we've got Peter Coutier in the men's 100-meter backstroke, and also Lara van Niekerk in women's 50 meters breaststroke. Christian Sadi in men's 50-meter freestyle, S7. In silver, we've got Danica van Veenkerk in women's 50-meter freestyle, S13. Peter Coutier, Michael Hawley, Andrew Gallagher, and Amy Kenny in the mixed 4x100-meter medley relay. We also have Kaylin Colbert in women's 200 meters breaststroke. As usual, no DNA, just RSA. So we must keep on cheering our teams at the Commonwealth Games and also never forget to support Bafana. Oh, yeah. There are more, guys. What can we do? They're just South Africans. On bronze, Henry Gallagher in the women's meters, 100 butterfly, Ruad Fanny Rienen in 100-meter breaststroke, Oliver Nell, Amy Kenny, Henry Gallagher, Rebecca Meda in the women's 4 by 100 medley relay. Again, Peter Kotze, Michael Holy, Chadley Claw, Ruad Vanikan in the men's 4 by 100 medley relay. Chadley Claw became the most decorated male athlete with a record of 21 medals after helping South Africa secure bronze in the 4 by 100 male medley relay. They're just South African guys. They're just South Africans. It's in our DNA. Thank you very much.
With the good news, you don't allow them not to be announced. So, colleagues, the statement of the post-cabinet briefing will be shared. We just want to also add the good names of the good South Africans who are making us proud in the pool that are there. I know that colleagues are looking for the names of the newly appointed board members of PIC. They are contained in the statement. You'll get it very soon. On that note, Minister, let me thank you for the good news that has been given today. We're quite a happy nation. Thank you, colleagues. This brings us to the end of this briefing, and the briefing is adjourned, and have a great one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have my tea there.